Hello everybody, here we are again. It's Thursday and it is the infant feeding team. I had to think who I was then. Infant feeding team, this is our questions and answers session for about an hour. So this session is for anything to do with feeding your baby. So if you're pregnant and want to ask questions, if you are planning or feeding your baby and it's not going so well, this is what it's for. If you're bottle feeding, this is exactly what we're here for. And if you're weaning your baby or you're beyond the early days and you want to have questions, this is what this is for as well. So, you know, anything at all, if you get the picture. What we don't talk about. Yeah, we're in our office today. Nobody else in.
As I'm just noticing actually, because I've got the screen up and I can see that pink hue at the bottom. That's because we've got the camera on a box, so it's got a bit of a pink hue. So it looked like a sepia print from the old days. So forgive us. I'm not going to move it because it'll probably fall over otherwise. So it's
definitely will. So we prefer not to answer questions about scans and postnatal visits and visiting and all the things that aren't really related, water births and things like that aren't really related to feeding. So if you're having a water birth and it's related to your skin to skin or whatever, that's fine. But the forum for those questions should be directed to Ask the Midwife or to your own midwives in the areas that you are in. So you can always email them or ring them up or have a question with them or a chat with them when you have your antenatal checks or your postnatal checks or whatever. So we'll try and answer them, but the best place is to the appropriate person. So hopefully that's okay for you.
I can see people arriving.
So welcome. Really looking forward to the session again. We had lots of people watching last week, over the week, and also we had some really fantastic questions. We always seem to get a theme, don't we, when we start, and it's not because we've started talking about it, it just sort of happens that way. So I don't know whether you're all telepathic and you can know what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about today, firstly, quite serious really, making sure that people are offered and take up the opportunity to have their COVID vaccinations. I know it's been in the press again about the impact of not having vaccines on pregnant women and postnatal women and you know, anything around pregnancy, the impact that it has on women. And we have, as always, had some very poorly women in hospital. A lot come in and they don't even know they're COVID positive, and that's, you know, that's good for them, but we do have some very seriously poorly women, and because they have got reduced lung capacity because you've got a baby in there, it makes it much more difficult to get over it and to cope with the impact that it has on your body. So please do consider it as an option and look at it on the positive, that if you've had your vaccination, your baby gets the antibodies.
Yeah.
And also if you have the vaccine when you've had your baby, the antibodies will go through the breast milk and your baby will get antibodies through breast milk as long as you're breastfeeding. So that has a massive impact on your baby's protection as well, which is really significant. So if you haven't had it, then do consider thinking about having it. There's lots of availability and there's lots of places you can go to apply, and we really are encouraging everybody to have that, to protect yourselves, but also to protect other people, because if you're coming into the hospital and you're COVID positive, you know, that has an impact on everybody that's caring for you and everybody around you in the hospital that you're in.
And I think it's bearing in mind that, you know, we know there's been some reticence from some people in the past because actually the message wasn't very clear to begin with, but I think the message is very clear now that there is definitely a benefit from having it. So, you know, if you're wavering, have a discussion with your midwife, because I think it is quite categoric now that it is protective for you, and it will be protective from your baby too, but it is protective from you. Whereas, you know, initially people weren't sure, and now I think that it's showing that it really is a good thing to do. You know, and that's why there's a big push on it, because you are more vulnerable, and particularly in your third stage of, you know, your third trimester, you are more vulnerable. And you know,
your baby is too, you know, the impact it has on premature births is there. So we do see mums coming in early labour with COVID, or they're very poorly with COVID and having to be delivered because they're too poorly. So, you know, it's not everybody is only slightly ill when they get it when they're pregnant. So that's consideration, and just think about the implications for breast milk as well, and how it does protect your baby. really protects it. And if you do have COVID, and if you're at home with COVID at the moment and you go into labour and have your baby, or you've got a baby, just make sure your hand hygiene is really fantastic. If you're breastfeeding, have your mask on when you're feeding your baby. If your baby is young enough to not pull at it and take it off. If your baby's pulling at your mask and taking it off, then it's probably safer to not have it on, because they're not touching the mask where it's going to be touching the droplets on your mask. So they will get the protection from the breast milk if you're breastfeeding. But just make sure that you are wearing a mask if your baby's close to you. And if you're too poorly, but you can manage to protect your supply, then do some pumping. And if you're even too poorly to do that, then consider relactating when you've got better, when you've got over the worst of it, and start pumping again. And if you've had a good supply, you should be able to get that supply back if you're poorly. It is harder to make milk if you're very poorly in the early days. If your body will try and recover itself rather than make milk. So we have found that some mums that have been incredibly poorly have had a reduced
struggled, haven't they, to increase
to make their milk and to get it, because it's usually about a couple of weeks that you're poorly for. Your supply is often not established very well. So, all of those things is worth taking into consideration, and it is, of course, your decisions and in your family.
A good source of information is the RCOG, isn't it? The Royal College of Gynecologists, Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and there's information on there, so that's a good source. And I know that our consultant, Brenda Kelly, has done a number of these Facebook Lives about them, which will still be available, and her latest ones.
The OMVP YouTube channel.
Right, well, having said we were going to talk about feeding.
We have in a roundabout way.
Because it's relevant, because you provide protection to your baby. If you've had the vaccine, you're providing protection to your baby, so which is always great. Stephanie's put a question up. She says, hello ladies, hope you're well. When breastfeeding my 5-week-old daughter, she usually falls asleep. I then try to wind her, but she's still asleep, so I struggle to offer the second breast. She typically wakes up 10 to 30 minutes after feeding and is still hungry, so I offer the other breast. Is this normal, and is that the right thing to do? And also, she's often sick whilst winding or feeding and often gets hiccups. Could this be reflux? Well, I'm thinking your baby sounds like a very normal baby.
Very normal.
Yeah, so it is often the case that they'll fall asleep after the first breast, but then they come round a little bit later, and we would still count that as the feed altogether, both breaths, even with a gap in between. And that's not uncommon. That they will be looking for the second breast, but like a little break and a pause. It's like when you go out for a big meal.
We would have pudding after about half an hour sometimes. And I'd just like to sit here and chat and then have pudding. So, it's quite normal for a baby to do that, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that they don't necessarily have wind because there's not many bubbles in breast. So if they're feeding well, they often don't take in a lot of wind. So often it just comes through and comes out the other end rather than them burping.
You mentioned about her being a little bit sick and getting hiccups. This is all normal as well. As I was saying to someone the other day, that great business in these muslin cloths, and they all come in different sizes. When we had our children, they came in white, and they were about that big, and that was it. And now you get them with patterns, and really big ones, and all sorts, and they're so versatile. In fact, I still have them at home, and I love them. But the whole reason that we have those is because babies are sick, and it is really normal for babies to be a bit sick. So what we worry about is a baby that is constantly bringing up whole feeds. That would be reflux. A baby that's bringing up a little bit, posseting, some people would describe it as, so bringing up a little bit at a time, and maybe not at every feed. We're not worried about those babies. That's really normal. And hiccups is a normal part of babyhood as well.
Sometimes putting them back on the breast stops the hiccups.
Yeah.
But I think the thing to say with babies is they don't have a valve closed on their stomach at this stage. When they get a bit older and start sitting up, then it starts to become more like the ones we have on our top of our tummy. And so if they have any wind or anything underneath the little bit of milk that they've got, then if they burp, it will just come up on top of the wind, because there's no valve to stop it coming up. So we don't do that because the valve is closed and it doesn't let anything out of the stomach other than air. So we don't sort of tend to bring food up. But when babies have got this open valve, then they will just bring anything that's above it, and that's normal.
Yeah.
So as long as it's not projectile vomit and they're losing weight, we would say that sounds absolutely normal. And we'd expect most babies to posset a little bit, which is what we call it, just a little bit of milk after each feed, and that's a sign that they're getting lots.
Yeah.
Their tummy's full.
It's interesting when we've had babies that maybe haven't been getting quite enough food, they don't tend to be very sick. And then as soon as they start getting more and more and more, mums report that they're being sick more often.
Yeah,
and actually, in a way, that's quite a good sign. It shows that baby's getting that bit more food, which is lovely.
And if you lift their legs up when you change their nappy, the same will happen. They'll open their mouth and
a little
it'll
bit
fall
comes out, doesn't it?
You know, so don't tip a baby up when it's had a feed, because it will just all come out.
Charlotte's come on and said, hi ladies, hope you're well and hope you're having a fantastic day. Alicia is having her nap at the moment. Can't believe this year coming she'll be 2. Where has this time gone? I'm much better in myself after what happened to me. Lovely to hear from you, Charlotte. And I can't believe she's 2 either. Yeah, go and close your eyes. Enjoy a few minutes peace. Don't rush around with a vacuum cleaner.
No.
Make the most of it. Yeah, cup of tea. Laura has said, hi ladies, my second baby is due on Tuesday. With my first, I suffered a postnatal infection, was rather unwell, which resulted in me giving up on my breastfeeding journey for my mental health. This time around, I really want to try and do better. Do you have any tips for how I can prepare to breastfeed? Would trying to harvest colostrum help with my supply when the baby arrives? Are there any extra supplements I could be taking? Thank you so much. So firstly, I think to say sorry for you. I'm sorry you had a rubbish time last time.
Hopefully you can have a better time this time. Hopefully your midwife has talked to you about antenatal harvest, colostrum harvesting, so you're doing some antenatal hand expressing, because that will increase your confidence in your ability to get milk out of your breast. And it doesn't mean you have to produce lots and lots of colostrum, but what it does mean is that you have a skill that you will have for hopefully next week. It might even tip you into labour if you're ripe and ready to go, and if you're a bit niggly, if you do some hand expressing, it might start you having your labour. So hopefully that's a positive. And also, you will get little bits of colostrum to give your baby in the early days, which will boost your confidence that your baby's getting some food on top of early stimulation. So, it's lots and lots of skin to skin as soon as you've had your baby, within the first hour, and then lots of opportunity to let your baby suckle within that first hour. And if they don't suckle in the first hour, then we would just highly recommend that you do some hand expressing in the first hour on both breasts. So you're doing lots of stimulation in that first hour, because that makes a huge impact on your milk supply on day 5. And we know that babies that have had cesareans, their mums have had less skin to skin in labour, in the operating theatre, because there's cold, they're shaky, they're feeling a bit sick, they don't want to hold their baby because they feel numb up to here if they're having an epidural, and so it makes it more difficult to do skin to skin. And we know that that lack of skin to skin in that first hour impacts your milk supply on day 5. So the more you do that stimulation, and the more we get it out there that you don't have any time off in that first day, the more you're going to make milk, and the more you'll produce milk and keep producing milk for your baby, so that you don't come back into hospital with high weight losses, which is what we're seeing quite a lot of, particularly when the wards are so busy that the support you're getting is more difficult, because there's so many women coming and going, that you feel you don't get enough time to see mums and help them properly. So it's it's a real ask for you to be on it yourselves, to take the responsibility yourselves, to say, I haven't fed my baby for 2 hours, let's get some hand expressing underway and give our baby some express colostrum. You're going to be on a win-win. You're stimulating your breast, your baby's getting food, and then your baby will get lots and lots of colostrum in the early days, and that will make them poo, so they'll get rid of meconium, they'll get rid of all the yuck in their tummies, and they will start to behave as hungry babies, and they will come to, and they will start to feed. Now, if you tuck your baby up and put it in a cot in the corner,
I was going to say this, skin to skin,
it's
get
not
that baby
going to
skin
play
to
out
skin,
those resources and wake up to be fed, because your baby's tired if you're tired. It's been through labour, and it's snuggled up by a radiator, and it is warm in the postnatal wards.
Very warm today.
These babies will be very sleepy and not actually wake up. So it's your job. Don't expect anyone to come in and tell you to feed your baby. It's your baby, you feed it. And your responsibility to stimulate your breasts frequently, and to take charge of that, and to say you didn't know you had to, because actually it's your baby, you need to feed it. And I know you've never had a baby, you've never done any of that before, but human instinct is that you need to feed your baby. And so the more you do it, the more you will make. The more milk you take off, the more colostrum you take off, the more sort of orders it puts in to make the milk.
Yeah, the quicker your milk will come in mature milk volumes. So,
and if your technique is really good because you've practiced before you've had your baby, then it will stimulate you to be good at doing it and to produce more milk. It won't make more milk if you do it before, but it will help you to have the skill to make the milk come in quicker if you have that skill.
So can we signpost you, Laura, to our videos? So they're available via our website, so the hospital website. So we've got our own page. If you go do a search for OUH maternity feeding, and you'll see there's a section called resources, and then it says maternity playlist. There are videos on there that links onto a YouTube page, and there are videos there. And one of them is about hand expressing, and we filmed a fabulous mum who was really happy for me to film her, and it shows a mother hand expressing just to get your skills back in before you have this baby, to try and see if we can help you have a different experience. The other thing to look at is we have a leaflet, and that will be available on our webpage as well. There's a leaflet about collecting colostrum while you're pregnant. So the idea would be that at least, as Naomi mentioned, at least if you've honed your skill again at hand expressing, when you come to do it after you've had this baby, in that first hour if need be, or if the baby's not feeding well at key points, that you're actually pushing your milk supply. So thinking about really getting it going and keeping your baby skin to skin, and this is relevant for everybody. The more you can keep your baby skin to skin, the more it brings out the innate natural breast seeking and breastfeeding behaviour in your baby. A baby that is wrapped up in a cot next to you is not going to do that. So spend as much time as you can skin to skin.
And I mean, expects to be.
Yeah, that's home for them. That's their home. Get them skin to skin, get hand expressing, and that will get you the best start going if there's any hiccups in your baby attaching and feeding themselves.
So I'll go through hand expressing. We seem to do this every week, but it's so important to get it right. This is your emergency care when your baby's not feeding. If you go home and you can't get your baby to attach at the breast, sometimes when your milk starts to come in, your breast change texture, they get quite full, and it's a really good way of taking a little bit of milk off to make them softer so your baby can latch. But you can do some massage, make yourself comfortable, warm and unobserved if that's important to you. And then with your finger and your thumb like a pincer, and it's really important that you get that action right rather than the rubbing, which is what a lot of mums do. They rub their breast and it doesn't tap into the lactation sort of ducts, the milk ducts that you've got in your breast. Go about 2 to 3 centimetres behind the base of your nipple, so you move backwards, and the texture in your breast might change a little bit. It might be a little bit more lumpy. And it's not an exact science, this, so the ducts are in different places on different women, and I did some hand expressing with somebody yesterday, and it was really close to the base of the nipple where she got the most response in some places, and then other mothers it's much further back. So you work round your breast and move your fingers about, but the key is to be like a pincer, and you're imagining that these two fingers are going together, so you're not
meeting.
You're not doing this and rubbing, because that doesn't effectively milk the breast. You're actually going into the ducts and you're holding and squeezing them, and you have to be quite firm, and then you release, push back a little bit, go back in, hold and release, and you do that all the way around. You work all the way around like a clock face, and then you come to this side and you do the same again on this side. You do a little bit of massage. If you've got a baby, sniff your baby, because that really works. You get loads of oxytocin doing that. Have a lovely
I had a lovely mummy earlier this week, and I can't remember what she was watching. I think it might have been Graham Norton or something. She was watching like the best bits of Graham Norton. I think it was that actually, and it obviously made her laugh, and it released oxytocin. And if she's watching, she can come back and say that that's what it was. But she was on the postnatal ward, and she said to me, she got the most milk watching. I think it was Graham Norton's best bits, because obviously it made her laugh. And if you think about oxytocin, it's your feel-good hormone. It's where you want to be in a good place. So watch your favourite programmes. Watch something that makes you feel good. Don't go and watch Handmaid's Tale or something like that.
And talk to your partner about things that you did together that were wonderful. When you start pumping, just talk about what you've done together. what's brought you together, what's made you happy.
Put a piece of music on that you
Yeah.
really like. Maybe your
Look at
first
your wedding
dance from
day
your
pictures,
wedding, you
yeah.
know. So something like that that's going to make you feel all wonderful.
Take your
And that
pet
will
and
help.
cuddle your pet,
Yeah.
you know, because that really makes you relax as well. Talk about, if you're a dog lover, talk about your dogs, you
Yeah.
know, and because they're your firstborn usually,
Yeah.
and you've got your dog before your baby, so
Yeah.
they're your firstborn.
Yeah, I just spoke to a couple upstairs and I said, look at the two most important people in your life, and the partner went round, but the dog's not here.
So, you know, bring your pet
That's
into
the
it
second
as
and
well.
third then.
Because they're your firstborns, you know,
Yeah.
they're very important in your life, and you worry about those before you take your baby home.
And when they looked at sort of the elderly and everything, they found that when people stroke dogs, so taking dogs into homes and everything, it really helps release oxytocin in people. So, you know, if you are, as Naomi says, if you are a dog owner, then, you know, come and stroke your dog and just think good thoughts, listen to nice music, it all helps. Do not sit
Cuddle
there
with your
and
husband or your
stress.
partner.
Yeah.
Just make it positive, because all of those things will help you
Yeah.
to have a successful breastfeeding journey this time. You know, make it work for you, make them, you know, maximise your opportunity to feed, get early help, and if you're really struggling, you know, get the contact details from us. That's all on the website, and you can access us. You can self-refer to us if you need to access Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support. They are amazing. Baby Cafe Abingdon, amazing. They're all lactation consultants, highly qualified staff working on them, and it's all free. And so use them if you feel, and don't forget your midwife. She's the first person you go
Yeah.
to when you go home to
And
get
they're all
early
trained.
breastfeeding support.
They are all trained.
to breastfeed.
So I think that leads into something that we were talking about. You know, if you come in, don't expect you're going to be seen by us. So we tend to meet people if things are going slightly awry, not going so well. So, you know, much as we do these sessions and we train our staff, the idea of training our staff is that they have the skills to give that first care. So they're the ones who will get you through the first few days. If things are not going quite so straightforward, or you've got risk factors before you've even had your baby, then actually that's where we would get involved. So don't anticipate you're going to necessarily see us.
We wouldn't see you if you were normal and your baby was, say, 1 day old and you couldn't attach it, because the staff are the perfect people to do that for you and to get that support. And you know, if you can't get your baby to attach, don't panic, because you can. This is your emergency care. You can do your hand expressing and you protect your supply. If you've got milk, you can do anything. And
Absolutely.
you know, most babies on the postnatal ward have had a long labour, because the babies that have had water births have gone home very quickly, or they've not come in, they've gone straight from labour ward. So a lot of people that are on the postnatal ward have had more complex deliveries, they've had instrumental deliveries, and they've had epidurals. And all of those things impact your baby's ability to wake up and feed in the first 48 hours. So, you know, long labour with an epidural, that your baby's had the fentanyl, which has gone through the epidural, it has an impact on your baby's ability to wake up and behave in a normal way. So it takes a bit longer for a baby to learn to breastfeed in the first 48 hours if you've had an epidural, for instance, or you've had a cesarean, or you've had an injection for pain relief. It takes a while to get that out of the baby's system. So we talk about protecting the supply, hand expressing, protecting the supply skin to skin, and more hand expressing, because you can do anything if you have that milk. But if you don't do that because you're too tired and you'll do it tomorrow, you will have to do more tomorrow, because you have to pump as well in order to catch up. And the longer you leave it till tomorrow, the harder it is to make that supply. And the clock ticks from the day your baby's born. Alex always talks about this. It's tick, 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 up to about 14 days.
Yeah.
And once that clock stops ticking, it's very hard to make milk, because the window has shut, the opportunity is shut to stimulate those receptors to make the milk. So if you don't do a lot of early stimulation, the milk supply is less at 2 weeks' time and into 3 months' time. And that's when you have to then spend hours and hours pumping, topping your baby up, and all the other things, coming to and from to get your baby weighed, coming to see us if there's, you know, ongoing problems and your baby's not reaching its milestones.
Yeah, it's much easier to influence your milk supply early on than later.
So you're not allowed to sleep in the first few days. You know,
Well,
after you've had your
little
cesarean,
snippets.
you hand express as soon as you've had it, because you really whack up those hormone levels. So protect your milk supply in the early days, because that will give you a head start, and then you'll have milk. and then you can learn to breastfeed if you're having problems attaching.
So Laura actually finished off saying, are there any extra supplements I could be taking? The answer to that is no. So the majority of what you're doing is it's mechanical. You're removing the milk. You're boosting your hormones. Your body's being told that you've had the baby, and that, you know, if you think about some of our mothers who choose not to breastfeed, within 24 to 48 hours they won't be getting any milk. So think about, you know, you need to tell the body the baby is here and get on with it, and you know, catch sleep when you can. Partners are fantastic. So, you know, your partner can cuddle a baby, you can have a snooze, and then when it's next feed time, up you get again, and off you go, keeping your babies close. So, and I know Laura came back because I saw that it come back up at the bottom, so I'm just going to go back to the other part of Laura's point. She went, thank you so much. If I'm able to express some colostrum and freeze it, should I bring it into the hospital? Does the JR have somewhere I can store it? Now that is a really, the million-dollar question, because there are fridges and freezers in the hospital, but we have had real issues with milk going missing. Because if you imagine, we do 12-hour shifts, so you come on, it's handed to a member of staff, they put it in a fridge, they maybe document it somewhere, and the next day it can't be found. So we would highly recommend that you bring in as small amount as possible, and that because your partner will be coming in and out, that they bring more in if necessary, because we really want you to get on and express anyway when the baby's born. As Naomi mentioned, if you're expressing before the baby's born, it has no impact on your supply going forward. It's everything you do when the baby is born. So yes, have a little buffer, but don't worry so much about the volumes. It's what happens after the baby's born is important. Get your skills back up, make sure you're confident with what you're doing. Maybe bring a little bit in a cool box with ice blocks and keep it with you as long as possible.
There's 45 women on the ward and 45 babies plus, and if there 45 women brought colostrum in and it filled up the fridge, and people come and go, and you end up on an observation ward and you're not there immediately after delivery, you don't know how long your labour is, it walks. You know, because there's so much there.
Actually, I looked in the fridge this morning and it is full at the moment.
You know, it's not a great place to put your colostrum, and sometimes it's put into the fridge instead of the freezer, and then it defrosts, and then it has to be used within 12 hours. So that's devastating. And if you have a 12-hour labour plus, and that you brought it in and haven't got anything to keep it cold in, you know, then it has to, you can't use it.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way of doing it is to bring in anything, the latest that you expressed, because the latest you expressed can be kept at room temperature 24 hours and in a fridge for 5 days. So if you bring the latest that you expressed that hasn't even been frozen, then that can be kept in a cool bag, because if you think about it, that's the equivalent of a fridge for quite a long time. Anything you've had to freeze, I would get brought in at a later date if necessary, but you may not need it.
Do it in labour.
Yeah,
because that will assist your labour as well. So if you're in labour and you're waiting, you know, and things aren't too distracting, do some hand expressing, and that will really help your labour too. But it will also, you know, remind you of your skills in labour too, and you'll have something there that's freshly expressed that you can give to your baby once you've had it.
Stephanie's come back saying thank you. It seems like she's the baby that was feeding, so for 15 to 30 minutes after, you know, with a second breast. She's constantly feeding. We've been giving her a top-up bottle in the evening, so sometimes even after both breasts she's still hungry. So it's really quite common in the evenings that babies will do what's called cluster feeding, and they'll go backwards and forwards. They'll go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right for over about 2-hour period quite often. Many parents talk about this. You know, if you're managing to express and give us some of your milk at that point in time, then that's a great thing to be doing. You know, and often mums find they have more milk than they need in the morning, and that does a great job to help in the evenings. The theory behind cluster feeding, we think, is that the baby is learning how to really stock up. That milk in the evening is really, really high fat, much higher fat than earlier in the day when your breast felt fuller.
18% more fat.
Yeah, there you go. Key fact.
Factoid.
And so when you're feeding your baby and they're going backwards, forwards, what they're getting is smaller volumes but really, really high fat.
Big dollops.
Yeah, and the theory is that they're learning how to take that volume on and then hopefully go a little bit longer. So see how you get on. And you know, there's no reason if you wanted to, Stephanie, I don't know how old your baby is, I can't remember, that you didn't, you know, that you can't try and wake the baby after the first breast. If you know they're going to always have the second breast, there's no reason why you couldn't, you know, sort of open the nappy, give it a wipe, you know, and just rouse them so they'll take that second breast, so you can just make your feeding a little bit more of an eclipsed period of time, really. But
Yeah, I think, you know, it is a challenging time, and it's certainly for the first sort of 6 weeks they tend to do that quite a lot. And you know, they expect to be fed throughout the night and the day. I mean, babies are not sort of generally expecting to be on long sleeps. You know, they are not designed to be on long sleeps. You know, they have tiny little tummies, and it takes a long time for those tummies to get bigger. And I'll have to do that now, won't I? Now that I've talked about tummy sizes. Find our tummy size pot.
Every week.
Couldn't be without it, could we? But, you know, their tummies are designed to have small amounts in them. And, you know, the digestion of breast milk is much quicker than the digestion of formula. So it's about 46 minutes to digest a tummy full of milk, and it's about 73 minutes to digest a tummy full of formula.
I love the way you say about, and then you go really, really precise. About.
So this is your baby's tummy when it's born, and you can't get very much in that because it's not very big, and so it doesn't expect to be filled and stretched because, you know, particularly in the early days, if you do that and then you go back to breastfeeding, so you go home, you've got to keep giving those large volumes. So if a baby is day 1 or 2 and you start introducing more food, then the tummy will become this big or bigger, and then it will expect to have that as its newborn tummy, not that. So then it will have to be filled in order to satisfy your baby. So, you know, they're not meant to have large amounts, and that is gradual. This is a gradual build up to a month, you know. This is tiny. So you can imagine that they need to feed frequently to do that. And think about it in the long term, the health that you're providing for your baby, the benefits that you're providing for health for your baby and for you, and how long 4 weeks is in the whole period of your life, and how your, you know, commitment to a baby is 18 years, and then they become more and more plus, it becomes longer and longer, and you think, well, 4 weeks in 18 years or 20 years or 30 years as a parent is such a small investment, or 6 weeks or 6 months to exclusively breastfeed your baby is such a small investment, but at the time it feels like a lifetime unless you get it right. And that's why you need to get support. That's why you need to contact the right people to get the right sort of support, so that you can do that and be happy doing it. And if you understand that it's normal, then you become less anxious as parents. And I think if you don't know that babies feed frequently, as you've asked that question, and you don't realise that it's a normal baby behaviour, and you think you haven't got enough milk, then the obvious thing that you would do as parents is go out and buy something else to give your baby because you're worried about volumes and your baby not being happy. But if you understand the physiology behind it, and the way that your baby adapts to feeding and being out, you know, outside your tummy, you understand that they will need to feed frequently. And if you had a cat that had kittens, or you had a dog that had puppies, you would be up around the clock with them, just making sure they're okay. And certainly the mother is feeding 10 of them sometimes, or more or less. But there's a lot of babies that she has to feed, and it's a busy, busy time for her. And there's no difference between a puppy having milk and a human baby having milk. They all have the same needs, and they do the same behaviours and feed in the same way in the early days. So obviously they mature in a different way and they're separated, but actually as mothers it's no different. You have to be there around the clock for your baby, and the hormone levels are really high at night, and that increases your milk production as well. So babies are expecting to feed an awful lot in the first 2 or 3 weeks at night, which is always very disappointing.
Stephanie's baby is actually 5 weeks. So I'm just wondering, Stephanie, I mean, it might be that the positioning attachment could be tightened up a little bit. You know, there's always room for improvement with positioning and attachment. And it might be that as babies grow, we don't always allow for it. So if you can get, you know, seen by somebody, I know you're now 5 weeks, so you won't be seeing your community midwives anymore, but maybe, you know, with one of the other organisations like Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support or Abingdon Baby Cafe or La Leche, someone like that, just to see what you're doing. Yeah, or your health visitor, just get someone to have a quick peek at what you're doing and just see if they can tighten up your positioning attachment, because it might be that, you know, it could be improved just slightly and it would make a difference and make your baby slightly more efficient and transfer the milk a bit better. But as long as your baby's pooing and weeing appropriate to age, so we'd be expecting at least 2 yellow stools on a daily basis and 6 yellow wet nappies, and meeting those milestones, then it's hopefully it will just get better and better. We've got lots of questions coming through, Naomi, so we
So
need
just
to...
line your baby up correctly. Make sure, go back to basics, but think your baby's got bigger. And you always talk about babies' positions when they get bigger. They have to be in the same plane.
Yeah.
Make sure they lift their head back and that the nipple skims the gum ridge and goes right to the back of the throat, and you get a really big mouthful from underneath, so you're really tapping into the breast under here.
I'm looking to see, have we got two different sized dolls here today or not? We've got a small one and a big one.
No, we've
Only
got
big ones.
No, we've just got this size.
Yeah, because we sometimes have our little
No,
ones, don't we? No,
no,
because then you can
that's
show
the
that
clinic.
you start with a little baby, they're there, but actually then the bigger baby has to go there, and the head is
the
here.
head
The head stays in the same place. It's the body that comes
so
round.
the baby takes up more space around your body.
Yeah, this way
Yeah.
rather than this way. So they want to always start nose opposite nipple here.
But,
body
revisit
coming
that
around here.
positioning. Revisit that positioning so that you're
Right.
really sure that you're getting a big gape, that the head is free, they can lift their head right back. Saw a baby today, and if you hold the head, they just don't lift their head back in the same way and gape, and then they don't take as big a mouthful of breast. So just be aware that you're holding the back of the neck, you're supporting it like you're, at the hairdresser, so you're not holding your baby's head like this. Have a sneaky finger on the baby's head. You want to be holding it at the base of the neck, and this bit of your hand is supporting the back of the head, so it doesn't fall and wobble too much, because that's what mums worry about. Babies' heads won't fall off. We know that's fact. So, but allow your baby to then tuck its head back, because if it can do that, it will really open its mouth. It's part of the, the natural gaping and attachment, what do you call it, procedure, or pattern. And if they don't get the opportunity to do that, they won't gape. And many women come to clinic and say, my baby doesn't open its mouth, but they're not being given the chance to. They're not being offered the breast.
So if you imagine offering
in
the
the
breast,
lower way.
if you offer the breast there, you're not going to open your mouth very wide. But if it's up here, you're going to.
Unless you're holding the head, and then the baby can't do that.
No.
But you need them to come up, put their head back, and go onto the breast that way. And then they will gape and they will go on the breast. But if you offer it like this and tuck the baby in and just tip the nipple into the mouth like this in the early days, this is an older baby will do that if it knows how to breastfeed well. But a newborn baby, you've got to allow it to play that whole thing out. Lift its head back, chin hits the breast, nipple goes to the top of the back of the roof of the mouth, just skims the gum ridge at the top, and then the mouth take the tongue and the chin cup around the breast on the breast tissue, not on the nipple tissue. And then they get a really good mouthful, and they get a full mouthful of breast, and then they can move milk and get a really good feed. And then they're much happier as babies because they get a positive oral experience and more milk. So, it's very subtle, very, very subtle.
Right, we're moving on because we've got a few
Telling you to
questions
shut
coming
up.
up.
That's an important bit, 'cause if you
It
get
is
that bit wrong,
important.
it doesn't work.
It is important. Charlotte's just come back to say she wish she could hand us both a cup of tea
Oh,
through
yes.
the laptop. Would be lovely.
Would be so nice.
She said Alicia's crawling and loving it. She's very cheeky, I bet she is. Laura, we've already said about Laura, she'd come back already. And Charlotte's just put that she's been invited for an interview at F&M as a customer assistant.
Ooh.
Very well done. Good luck with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant customer advisor assistant. I'm sure you'd be
Well
fabulous. Well done. Kat has said, I have a 10-day-old and he's feeding well in the day, but I find it really hard to get him to latch at night when he wakes up hungry. Then we end up fussing and stressing out. It takes forever to even start the feed. The goal would be a nice sleepy feed and back to bed. Any tips?
Is that 10 days, did you say?
Yeah, I wonder if that's the difference of where you're feeding.
Yeah, it might be going back to what we've just gone through in offering the breast in the right way. And
Yeah.
you're feeding on your side at night so he can't lift his head back enough. You're
Yeah.
doing something different.
Make sure
when
your
you're
arms
feeding.
not over his head when if you're lying down. That he's free to tip back.
Maybe get out of bed and sit in the chair with
Yeah,
a
to
little
begin
light
with.
on to
Yeah.
start with, and
Yeah.
keep doing that round the clock for certainly for a couple of weeks until you've absolutely got it right. Because if you're not offering them the breast because you're sleepy and you've got them just slightly in a different position, they just may not play out those responses that we've just been talking about. See, it was worthwhile talking about that.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
absolutely. I wasn't saying it wasn't. I was just aware I've got little messages coming
Shifting
through.
me on.
Oh, I have to. Yeah, so I think, when you're learning, and it is a learned skill, and we always liken it to, you see those people go on Strictly, and they don't know what they're doing when they go on, but by the end of it, no matter whether they're the ones that get bumped out or not, if they do get better and better, and practice makes a difference. And that's what you're doing with feeding. It does make a huge difference the more you can practice. And I was talking to a mother recently, and she said, oh, but I've tried other positions, it doesn't work. I said, it doesn't matter. If you've got one position that works for you, that's all that matters. That we don't need to be able to do lots of other positions. It's nice to be able to do lots of other positions, but it isn't necessary. So if you've got one position that works well, I would stick with that for the moment. And then when it's not stressful, like the middle of the night, then that's a good time to go and practice lying down. Maybe try a lying down feed in the day when you're more alert and you can sort of be a bit more careful about how you're doing it, and more sort of able to spot if things are not great. So make it, as Naomi said, nothing on the back of the baby's head. So when a mum is lying on her side, her arm, if she's lying on that side, her arm wants to be up here. This hand's the hand that pulls the baby on. We don't want this arm down here because that's going to get in the way. We want the lower arm out of the way, and this hand is going to just be on the baby's shoulders and going to bring the baby in. So they start nose to nipple, as we've said already, and then the baby will go head back, up a lip to nipple, and your hand would be on their shoulders, and you just scoop them in. So if that's what that's what you'd be aiming to do. But you might find you do a better job practicing that in the day, and then you can transfer it to night. And at night, you get up and do what works best for you. So
Or go and talk to one of the support breastfeeding services to do alternative positions. I mean, that's perfect. It's perfect use to get their absolute skills on that, because that's really lovely support for you, and in all the different things that you can do and positions you can try. So when you've got your hand up, you could put it under your pillow so that you don't get pins and needles. That sometimes helps. If you actually put your hand under the pillow, it protects it from getting pins and needles in it as well. So that might help.
So see how you get on with that. Yeah,
it is hard. It's hard.
We want you to be having
at night.
We want you to be having nice sleepy feeds and go back to bed nice and quickly.
And it will come. But don't try and run before you can walk. One little step at a time.
Alexandra said, hi ladies, last night my little girl refused to drink from the breast. She latched and started to suckle, but not hard enough to get the milk flowing. She started screaming, and then despite several tries, she only settled when I gave her a bottle. Does it sound like a bottle preference? May I do something to reverse this? She's now only drinking from the breast at night anyway. Rest of the day she takes express from the bottle. Now she has come back and said how old the baby is, I noticed. A bit further down, she's 4 months.
It could be flow confusion, and the preference is that they get a big hit immediately when they get a bottle, and if that's predominantly what she gets when she's in her conscious time, so when she's awake and alert, that will be what her driver is, and so she's got used to getting an instant hit from the breast and from the bottle, and the breast doesn't work in the same way. So when she's suckling at night and she's more sleepy, she's sort of in her unconscious mind, she's sort of not really consciously feeding, she doesn't notice, and so she's much more sleepy and doesn't mind that it takes a couple of sucks before her feed hits her mouth. And so sometimes you can sort of hold the teat a little bit and just slow the suckling down, so when she starts to suck she doesn't get milk immediately, and sometimes that teaches them that they have to suck a few times to get milk. You might find feeding sometimes in the daytime, if you're not working, just to go back to that so she gets used to having breastfeeds during the day might help. Trying to feed her in a quiet environment, so obviously in the daytime go into the bedroom and shut the curtains if that's a good time. Turn radios down at 4 months, turn televisions off. Try not to have a conversation with anyone, because they are very distracted by 4 or 5 months, and that might take her back to breastfeeding again. It is frustrating, but it's more likely that it is flow driven in that sense, isn't it? Do you agree with me?
Yeah, quite very likely.
And it's just trying to go back to that sleepy time. Try and feed her if she's had a little nap. Feed her before she's awake, so that you're putting her to the breast before she's fully awake.
The other thing you could do is just try just doing a quick bit of hand expressing before you pop her on, so she's getting that milk a bit sooner as well. So, you know, thinking about the fat and, you know, think nice positive thoughts, get that milk supply, you know, get that milk let down
when you're
going.
stressed because of the feeding not going well. You could do some compressions as well, which is something you can do all of the time, but that will kickstart. That's like pushing milk in like a bottle almost. You're giving a bit of oomph behind your flow. And that gives her a really big hit, so she gets a really big amount of milk before the letdown. Once you get the letdown, be careful because it might surprise her if you're really squeezing firmly as well. But hold and squeeze is you know, compression. It's not that, it's holding and squeezing, and that just keeps a steady flow going into her mouth, and that might help her as well. There isn't anything magic really, but I think if they've got used to bottles, they get used to bottles. And well done you for giving express breast milk at 4 months in a bottle. That's absolutely fantastic. And feeding at night, but it might be that if you want to go back to giving some feeds in the daytime, that you've got to sort of try different things to.
And the other thing is not to make it a battleground. So if she's getting upset, stop, do something else. Try and keep it as positive as possible. So, you know, using that time when she's a bit sleepy, as Naomi's mentioned, but don't make it a battleground. If she's getting upset, stop, because that really will become a really big battleground.
Aversion to feeding.
So we know that's not a good
breast strike or a bottle strike even, and that's really upsetting for parents then when they can't get their baby to feed at all. So always go back to what she wants. So default will be to give her a bottle. If you're trying to give her breast, just give her a bottle and reassure her. But you could just try, you know, squeezing the teat a little bit. I'm sure it's not researched or anything, but some people suggest that. That you just slow the flow of milk down that they get in the first couple of days, so that you slow that flow going.
Right, that's our buzzer going at the moment. Any advice on getting baby to take a bottle? This is Olivia. My son is almost 4 months. He was 4 weeks early at birth and wouldn't feed from me. He had donor milk in bottles. After a couple of weeks and some amazing support from midwives, we managed to get him to breastfeed. Woo-hoo. We stopped the bottles to get the breastfeeding established, but now he won't take anything. As much as I love feeding him, it would be nice for a little bit of freedom once in a while. We hear this so often.
How old is he?
He is now 4.
Frustrating, but I think you've just got to keep trying really, don't you?
Yeah, get someone else to try, partner, not be there yourself. And all I can say is what a complete endorsement of you. Your baby's going, I'd much rather it from you, Mum. So that's wonderful, and you know, that's really paid dividends. But yeah, maybe partner trying, not trying when they're hungry, you know. So again, it goes back to this aversion thing. We want the baby to think of this as something, something good. So you know, trying, you know, when they're a bit sleepy, not making it not when they're desperately hungry, because that would be not a good time to do it. Much as that sounds illogical, but it is totally logical.
And do you need to do it now, or can you leave it a little while and try it again, so that you're not in a hurry if you're not going back to work straight away? You know, I know that you're saying you might want to go out a little bit, but you know, if they are hungry, they will take the bottle eventually, because I know that that's happened a lot of times where mums have been had to go somewhere in an emergency, and a baby's been left with somebody, and eventually they will take it. But it is quite stressful.
Yeah, I was about to say very stressful.
It is quite stressful. So, you know, just go back to default always. Go back to breastfeeding. As soon as there's any screaming or upsetting, if it shouldn't even get to that, you know, just go back to a breastfeed and just keep chatting to your baby, talk to it, reassure it. And you go out of the room if you're trying to get your baby to have a bottle, because it may not want to see you and feed it. I mean, you could try doing it on a spoon or a cup and let the baby lap at this stage. It will do that as well, so it's not necessarily a bottle. You could probably try to feed a beaker, so you could try something like a spout, which they're quite capable of taking at 4 months, and you know, other things other than a bottle, because it may be that they don't like that in their mouth in the same way. So try something different, or a tippy cup, sippy cup, doily cup. And there are all sorts of different things. You don't have to use a bottle.
No.
So have a look and see what's available, and things like La Leche League are really good at offering support to parents that are trying to get babies off the breast and weaning them onto alternative cups and things. If you're struggling, you know, for mums that have to go back to work, they're very good at supporting and advice for those sort of things as well. So it might be worth seeing if they've got any sessions on that. and weaning and things like that coming up, because there's a very active La Leche group in Oxford, run by lactation consultants, so that's really supportive and may offer you some advice as well. And they may, they're usually much more up to date on the availability of what's in the shops at the moment in terms of cups and things. It's a while since we weaned our babies, and things are changing all the time, so we don't keep up with all the different products that are available, but mums that are a peer that are with you in your own baby's age group will probably know of some really good tips and things that they've used, or stuff that they've used to help babies take food. So use support groups and see what's available.
Yeah, good luck with that, Olivia.
Talking a little bit about things like forums, it's very easy to get caught into forums and what have you when you're breastfeeding, and just be very careful about the advice that people are giving you, and do you know what their qualifications are and what they're giving you as appropriate advice. In a lot of things you might ask on forums about doing things with your baby, weaning, or trying to get your baby to fully breastfeed, if you're challenging top-ups and all of those things. Just make sure if you're on a forum that the person that's giving you the advice is medically able to give you the right advice, and don't take advice from somebody who is a lay person necessarily, that hasn't got the science behind your particular situation. So dropping top-ups might have worked for them, and they may be preaching about that, but it may not work for you. And so it's really important that you know where the advice has come from, who's giving it, and what qualifications they've got to give you that advice.
I think very good resources are things like the Breastfeeding Network, La Leche League, NCT, Association of Breastfeeding Mothers. So those are all really, really good places to go and get information, because they're all organisations specific to supporting parents, and it will be, what you get from them will be evidence-based, researched information, unbiased.
And what they suggest on a forum may not be safe for you, and it may not be appropriate for you to do. And
let's have a quick look and see what time it is.
As nice as it
we've
may
got some
well
more questions
be,
there. We've only got 5 left.
It may not be the right answer for you. So be very careful if you are on forums to know where they're coming from and where they are. It might be another country that you're talking to the forum on, and is it the right advice for you?
So Olivia, see how you get on. A few things to think about there.
Yeah.
But it's ironic, isn't it, that battle to get your baby to breastfeed, and now you'd quite like them to do something else as well.
Good for you though.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Moving on, Kat has said, question number 2, because she put one earlier. I'm expressing into a bottle as well as breastfeeding, so my husband can help with the feeding and bonding. So I can get some sleep. I don't want baby to get used to the bottle. Oh, this is following on from the one before. Love it. Will one express bottle a day affect his breastfeeding? Does it matter to my supply if husband always feeds him in the same time window, somewhere between 2 and 7 a.m?
How old's your baby? Can't remember how old your baby is.
Let me go back up and find Kat's question.
We don't know.
10 days old.
Yeah, so
quite early.
I would be very reluctant to introduce anything before about 4 or 6 weeks, if you're going to do that. But I would also say, it will if you drop a feed, it will affect your supply, particularly at 10 days, and also, if it's not on a regular time. So if you choose to give a 10 p.m. bottle of express breast milk every night, then your body will stop producing that milk if you're not pumping. But if you're going to give a bottle, then you need to wake up and pump, and that sort of defeats the object of doing it, doesn't it? If you're having to wake up and do something into a bottle while your husband's giving it another bottle. So I think that be very wary about that, because what you take out you make, and if you drop that, it will impact your feeding, particularly at night in the early days. And we know that it can impact your supply, but also we don't know the effect of giving a bottle to your baby will have on your baby until you do it. So if you're just starting to get going with breastfeeding, and your baby is a baby that doesn't like something different putting in its mouth, it may then not go back to the breast as easily. It might be a bit more upsetting for you. Most babies are adaptive, and they will cope with both, but some babies just don't, once they've had a bottle, they get really fussy at the breast with just one bottle, and you don't know till you do it with your baby whether it's going to happen to you or not. So it's a difficult one to say, yeah, you'll be fine, because you might not be. But have a real think about your milk production at this point if you start to supplement your baby, because the more you supplement your baby in the early days, the more your milk supply will reduce. So you will need to pump in place of it in the early days. So I would say leave it for 4 to 6 weeks, so that you really get going with the breastfeeding before you start to change what you're doing.
As I mentioned earlier, breastfeeding is a learned skill. So we're talking about, I likened it to Strictly. So it's that practice makes all the difference. Having said that, there will be parents out there who are doing just what you're talking about and cope just fine.
And there aren't any rules, remember that. You make the rules as parents.
Yeah.
But sometimes it has a consequence, and it
will
impact your supply.
To bear in mind that you really don't want to go more than 6 hours between expressions at your very maximum. And at 10 days, you're still within that 2-week window to maximise your milk supply. So your milk supply at this point in time is very impressionable. So I would say, as Naomi said, I would ideally not look at doing something too much now. Wait a little bit longer. Get your milk. Keep the practice going with learning how to breastfeed, and also keep your milk supply really optimised. And then think about it a little bit later.
If you speak to different cultures in breastfeeding, and if you went into a predominantly breastfeeding culture where babies suckle all night and they sleep all day, if you spoke to a woman that was feeding her baby in that culture and said, how many times did your baby feed last night? She'd say, what are you talking about? She wouldn't know. If you went to, say, America or the UK and said to a mother, how many times did your baby feed last night? She'll give you a blow-by-blow account of each feed and the exact time that it happened and how exhausting it was. So culturally, we expect to be sleeping all night in our Western culture. And the expectation is babies are put in a cot and they sleep all night and they wake up in the morning. And that is not what babies expect to do. So I think that they do expect to suckle frequently overnight and be close to their parents, and our culture has made that very difficult to do. And reading books and talking to other mothers, have you got a good baby because has he slept all night? And the expectation is that your baby sleeps after a couple of weeks, starts sleeping through the night, and that's not
what
normal
babies
behaviour.
do. No.
And they expect to be there all the time.
As we said earlier, they can't go long periods of time. No. Just to say, Kat, I did notice that you've mentioned that the window of time that you have been giving it is 2 till 7. Just to remind you, your prolactin levels at that point in time really do well for a good boost. So those night feeds are quite crucial. It may be that it could be that your partner gives it earlier in the evening, so you could get a bit of a chunk of sleep. And then do some feeds.
Bed at 7 o'clock, and sleep till midnight.
So maybe just do an earlier. I couldn't bear going to bed at 7. Naomi would, I would not. That would do my head in. Go to bed at 9 or 10 maybe, but at 7
when you have
o'clock.
a baby, you want to go to bed at 5 o'clock,
well,
don't you?
I don't know, even when I have my babies. But then I'm definitely an owl, and Naomi's definitely a lark. So we are very, very different. We have a real giggle about that. Anyway, but just thinking about those night feeds are really important for your milk supply in these early days. It's when your prolactin gets its biggest peaks, and so those night feeds are really important. If your partner's wanting to offer a bottle, and and if you're expecting your baby's coping with it, maybe try maybe earlier in the night, or maybe he could do it at 8 in the morning, and then you sleep on a bit longer. It might be that works better. But just thinking that 2 till 7, that's fitting in with that really crucial prolactin time, that I would think ideally maybe shift it earlier or later, and keep that time as a time when you're feeding.
And it goes back to our expectation, and that babies are tiny for a very short space of time, and you've had 10 days of your baby whirlwind in your life, creating complete upstage and turmoil and what's happened to us. But actually, it's such a tiny amount in your life. Think what you were doing 6 months ago. You can hardly remember it. It's so quick, and your baby is going to be eating sandwiches in 6 months' time. So put it into perspective how quickly that time goes.
I would say to parents at 4 weeks, did you even know you were pregnant? And many women don't even know yet they're pregnant. At 4 weeks into their pregnancy.
Time passes so quickly with a baby, and so don't try and hurry it along. Just take it as it is each day, and work around the sleep.
I
because
totally
is
get it that you
exhausting.
want
We
that
know
sleep,
how tiring it is.
and I know parents love, partners love to be able to be part of the feeding, and I totally understand that. I would just suggest
There's
earlier
many other things
or
they
late.
can do.
Yeah, and if you want to carry on
Yeah.
that, just earlier or later. Many mums find that nighttime cluster feeding is a really good time for partners, for a bottle to be given, but sometimes that can break that little cycle a bit then. Charlotte's come on. Any ideas whether Alicia can have the COVID-19 vaccinations? I want to make sure she's protected. She can't yet. She's too young. I think the youngest is 12, I think, isn't it? I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that one. She's nervous. No, she's nervous about her interview. Good luck with it. We're hoping that works for you. And Alexandra's come back to say thank you to the answer we gave her earlier. That's what I was suspecting, and she'll give it a go. So that was with regard to that feeding issue she had. So yeah, with the flow, we'll talk about the flow. So I don't think the cat's going to like. Don't think Cat's going to like the answer we've just given her. I'm sorry, Cat. I know sleep's so important.
So we've all been there. We know how exhausting it is being a parent, and it's relentless.
Much as ours are quite old, you don't forget. It's something I think you just don't forget. So I do remember catching some sleep in the afternoon. Just that was so delicious. So lovely to go and lie down in the middle of the afternoon. It was so fantastic. Right, I think that's it on questions, and I think we must be over time. And for some unknown reason, you never get the same screen when you do this. No clock on here today. Normally there is. Yeah, we're just gone 1:30. So unless there's a flurry of questions now, I think we're going to say our goodbyes. And we'll be back next week.
Same place next week.
Well, we might not be the same place.
Oh no, we might be a different place.
We might be in a
surprise
different
you with
room.
another room, shall we?
Yeah, as we
You're
said.
getting to know the whole hospital.
Yeah, as I said, this is our office.
I think we've been everywhere practically. I think the only place we haven't been is onto the labour ward.
Yeah, they might be don't have
They probably
enough
haven't got
room
any
for
spare
us.
rooms for us, but we've been into some of the birth rooms on Spires up here, and
It's very
we've been
busy
into
usually on
side
delivery
rooms,
suite.
and we've been downstairs in the basement in the antenatal clinics.
Yeah.
We've been everywhere over the last year or two.
Yeah.
So, well, is it 18 months? I think it is 18 months, isn't it? Perhaps a bit more, 19 months.
Yeah, definitely.
Even more, probably.
Yeah. Oh, Cat's come back. Thank you very much. I'll just find ways to sleep when baby does.
Yeah.
That's the perfect solution. And you actually, what happens is baby sleep is different to normal adult sleep, and you match your baby. So a baby's sleep rhythm is very, very different. When you think about when we as adults fall asleep, we go into a deep sleep. Babies don't straight away, and their sleep cycle is much shorter than an adult sleep cycle. But as a new mother, your body matches your baby, and you are completely matched up on that. And this used to be my husband's excuse not to get up to the children, because he said, well, your cycle has matched the baby's and mine hasn't, so I need to stay in bed.
You sleep with an eye open, really, as a mother.
Yeah, so be grateful you've got a husband who's happy to get up and do the feeds, because mine wouldn't.
Well, you can always get him to do it for a week. He'll soon stop and change his mind.
So Cat, that's fabulous. If you can try and catch a sleep, then that would be great, because it is important at this early stage to really push your milk supply, and it will pay dividends and things will get better, we promise.
What's your superpower?
Yeah,
You
making milk. You can even
Say
do
that
it.
all the time
You
now.
can do it when you're asleep.
Yeah.
Right, one and all, it's lovely. Thank you so much for the questions.
Great questions this week.
And we'll see you next week.
Yeah,
Okay.
same time. Bye bye from us. If I can turn it off.